In the age of giants, when towering dinosaurs ruled the land and strange creatures filled the skies, there was one predator unlike any other. It did not walk on thunderous legs or roar across the plains. It did not chase its prey through forests or lift its head above the canopy. Instead, it waited, silent, unseen, hidden beneath the murky surface of ancient waterways. And when it struck, even dinosaurs disappeared. This is the world of Deinosuchus, a monster whose name means terrible crocodile. But even that description feels too small. This was not merely a large crocodile. It was a titan, a reptile larger, stronger, and more devastating than almost any aquatic predator that has ever lived. For millions of years, dinosaurs roamed the earth, believing themselves unchallenged near the water's edge. Herds of massive hadrosaurs wandered in search of plants. Young tyrannosaurs approached rivers to drink. Even armored dinosaurs ventured close, trusting their spikes and plates. None of them knew that beneath the water, a colossal shadow waited patiently, ready to unleash a level of power unmatched by any living reptile today. Deinosuchus grew as long as a city bus. Its skull alone stretched longer than a fully grown man. Its teeth, thick, conical, and bone-crushing, were perfectly shaped, not just to hold prey, but to destroy it. Unlike modern crocodiles, which clamped down and drowned their victims, Deinosuchus had a different weapon: pure crushing force. One bite could crack through dinosaur bone like dry wood. This was the apex predator of the waterways, a killer so perfectly adapted that it dominated rivers and coastal marshes for nearly 10 million years. While dinosaurs fought for territory on land, Deinosuchus ruled the margins between worlds where water met earth, where survival depended on what waited beneath the surface. But what made this creature so extraordinary was not just its strength, it was its strategy. Deinosuchus didn't need to chase, it didn't need to roar. It survived by becoming the perfect ambush predator, a living trap, a force of nature that relied on silence, camouflage, and sudden violence. To understand this deadly giant, we must journey back to the late Cretaceous. Around 82 to 73 million years ago, North America was split in two by a vast inland sea. Swamps, rivers, and tidal bays formed a complex, humid world. Everything that approached the water risked becoming a meal. This ecosystem was not ruled solely by dinosaurs. It was shaped by the presence of a lurking giant, whose jaws could snap entire limbs in a single motion. For decades, Deinosuchus has been overshadowed in popular culture by the dinosaurs it hunted. Yet in terms of raw power, it was one of the most terrifying predators to ever live. A reptile that dwarfed modern crocodiles, a hunter that evolved to challenge even the largest animals around it. And so the question emerges: how did scientists uncover such a monster? How did we piece together the story of a creature lost to time, with fossils scattered across an ancient continent? In the chapters ahead, we explore the dramatic discovery of Deinosuchus, reconstruct its massive body, enter its dark and dangerous world, and follow the mystery of how such a titan vanished. And finally, we ask one haunting question: if Deinosuchus lived today, would we still dare to stand near the water's edge? To answer that, we begin at the moment its bones first emerged from stone, and the realization that this was no ordinary crocodile. The story of Deinosuchus begins not in a swamp or a riverbank, but in the dry heat of the American West during the mid-19th century. At the time, paleontology was still young, and the great bone wars between rival scientists were reshaping the scientific world. Fossils were being unearthed at a furious pace, often faster than they could be studied. Dinosaurs dominated the headlines. Enormous skeletons of hadrosaurs and horned beasts captured the imagination of the public. But in the middle of this frenzy, something unusual appeared. In the 1850s, geologist Ebenezer Emmons discovered a strange set of fossil fragments in North Carolina. They were unlike the bones of any dinosaur known at the time. Thick, heavily textured, and massive, the fragments looked almost like parts of a skull. But they were so large that Emmons believed they belonged to an extinct species of giant monitor lizard. He named it Deinosaurus, terrible lizard, unaware that he had misclassified one of the most extraordinary reptiles ever to exist. For decades, the true nature of these remains remained unclear. Paleontologists lacked the tools and the comparative specimens to identify them correctly. Many early fossils were incomplete, often consisting of only a few bones from the skull or armored scutes from the animal's back. No one yet understood that these pieces belonged to a crocodile far larger than any alive today. The turning point came in the early 20th century, when American paleontologist William Diller Matthew examined new material coming from Texas and Montana. These fossils were larger, more complete, and unmistakably crocodilian. Thick jawbones, massive vertebrae, enormous osteoderms, bony plates that once formed armor along the creature's back. Matthew realized that these remains were not from a dinosaur at all, but from a crocodile so gigantic it redefined the boundaries of reptilian evolution. In 1909, the creature received its proper scientific name, Deinosuchus rugosus, the rough, terrible crocodile. Later discoveries would reveal additional species, but the name stuck. The identity of the monster was finally clear. Over the next century, more fossils surfaced. The Big Bend region of Texas yielded some of the most important specimens: huge jaw sections over a meter long, teeth as thick as human wrists, and osteoderms the size of dinner plates. In Montana and Wyoming, skull fragments helped researchers reconstruct the shape of the enormous head. From these pieces, scientists realized the full scale of the animal. Deinosuchus could grow up to 10 meters in length and weigh as much as a small whale. Its skull alone surpassed that of most large theropod dinosaurs. Its teeth were thick, conical, and heavily reinforced, designed not just for gripping prey, but for crushing bone. Even the serrated bite marks found on hadrosaur fossils told their own story. Some bones bore signs of deep punctures and powerful compressions that matched perfectly with Deinosuchus' teeth. These were not scavenging marks, they were kill marks. And yet, the discovery history of Deinosuchus remains incomplete. No fully articulated skeleton has ever been found. Every reconstruction is based on a mosaic of fossils from multiple sites. Nearly all large specimens are partial, just skulls, jaws, vertebrae, and armor plates scattered across ancient river channels. The missing pieces leave room for debate about its exact shape, posture, and even growth rate. Still, the evidence is clear. This was the largest crocodilian in North American history, and one of the most formidable predators of its age. Today, the most significant fossils are housed in museums across the United States: the American Museum of Natural History in New York, the Field Museum in Chicago, and various university collections each hold fragments of the giant. Together, these pieces form a portrait of a creature so remarkable that, even now, it challenges our understanding of prehistoric ecosystems. The discovery of Deinosuchus did more than identify a new species. It revealed that the waterways of the late Cretaceous were every bit as dangerous as the land. Dinosaurs ruled the forests and floodplains, but anywhere near deep water, a different king waited in silence. And as scientists uncovered more bones, one truth became impossible to ignore. This was not just a crocodile, it was a predator that hunted dinosaurs. Now, with the fossil evidence assembled, it's time to rebuild the monster itself. Its size, its armor, its crushing power. Let us meet the giant in full. To imagine Deinosuchus, we must look beyond the crocodiles we know today. Modern crocodilians are impressive, powerful predators, but compared to this ancient giant, they seem almost modest. Deinosuchus was a creature built on a different scale. Entirely a reptile whose body was shaped by millions of years of evolution into a near-perfect aquatic hunter. Start with its size. Deinosuchus could reach lengths of up to 10 meters, rivaling or surpassing the largest saltwater crocodiles ever recorded. But length alone does not convey its true power. This animal was massive, robust, thick-bodied. Its weight may have exceeded 8 or 9 tons, placing it on par with the largest land predators of its era. A fully grown Deinosuchus wasn't merely long, it was colossal, with a girth capable of pushing water aside in rolling waves. Its skull was one of its most striking features. Stretching more than a meter in length, the skull had a deep, broad structure that allowed for enormous muscle attachment. This gave Deinosuchus a bite force that likely exceeded anything alive today. Modern saltwater crocodiles can deliver nearly 3,700 psi of pressure. Deinosuchus may have reached upward of 10,000 psi or more, enough to crush bone with ease. Its jaws were lined with thick conical teeth that differed from the slender teeth of many crocodiles. These were not designed simply to grip prey, they were built to destroy it. Each tooth was like a sharp pillar, capable of punching through bone, armor, and thick dinosaur limbs. Fossils of hadrosaur bones bearing deep holes and crushed edges testify to this power. These animals didn't just bite, they shattered. The shape of the skull also reveals important clues about how Deinosuchus attacked. Its snout was not as narrow as modern gharials, nor as extremely broad as some alligators. Instead, it sat somewhere in between, a versatile shape suited for both gripping large prey and crushing heavy bones. This means Deinosuchus was not a specialist, it was an opportunist, capable of hunting a variety of creatures that approached its watery domain, moving down its neck and body. We find more extraordinary adaptations. Deinosuchus, like modern crocodilians, had osteoderms, thick, bony plates embedded in its skin. But in this creature, the osteoderms were enormous. Some were the size of dinner plates, heavily textured and ridged. They formed a rugged, protective armor running from its back down to its tail, defending the crocodile from potential threats and providing structural support. These osteoderms were not just armor, they were also lightweight for their size, containing internal air pockets that reduced weight while maintaining strength. This combination of protection and buoyancy allowed Deinosuchus to move more efficiently in the water, despite its immense size. Its body was powerfully built. The torso was deep and wide, housing massive lungs and powerful muscles used for propulsion. The limbs of Deinosuchus were stout, muscular, and positioned at angles that allowed it to move both in water and on land. On land, it could belly crawl like modern crocodiles, but it likely spent most of its adult life in water, where its true power could be unleashed. Then there was the tail, long, muscular, and thick at the base. The tail was the engine of the crocodile's movement, providing thrust through sudden bursts of speed. In water, a single sweep of its tail could propel Deinosuchus forward with explosive force, launching it toward prey with terrifying speed. Combine this with its ambush strategy, and you have the perfect recipe for a dinosaur hunting predator. Its sensory system was equally impressive. Like modern crocodiles, Deinosuchus likely had pressure receptors around its jaw, small sensory organs that detect vibrations in water. This allowed it to sense movement from incredible distances. A dinosaur drinking at the water's edge would not hear or see the giant lurking beneath the surface, but Deinosuchus would feel every ripple, every step, every shift in weight. Its eyes and nostrils sat high on its head, letting the crocodile stay almost completely submerged while remaining aware of its surroundings. Only a sliver of its skull needed to break the water's surface, revealing the bare minimum while the rest of the giant waited unseen. Its skin, thick and textured, would have matched the murky waters it lived in. Dark greens, muddy browns, or mottled patterns likely helped it camouflage perfectly among reeds and shadows. Reconstructing its full body reveals a predator that blended raw power, stealth, and strategy. A creature that could remain motionless for hours, conserving energy, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when it exploded from the water, it did so with a force few animals could escape. Deinosuchus was not simply a larger crocodile. It was one of the most formidable predators in the history of life on Earth. Its body was a masterpiece of evolution, powerful, stealthy, and perfectly suited for dominating its world. Now that we know how the giant looked, we must enter its world, a world where any step near the water could be your last. To understand Deinosuchus, we must imagine its world as it once was, a humid, coastal landscape carved by winding rivers, muddy estuaries, and swampy floodplains. During the late Cretaceous, North America was divided by the Western Interior Seaway, a vast inland ocean that split the continent in two. Along its edges, in the quiet shallows and the slow-moving tributaries, Deinosuchus ruled as the undisputed apex predator. The lifestyle of this giant was defined by patience. Unlike the fast-moving hunters of the land, Deinosuchus relied on stillness. It sank into the murky water, letting only its nostrils and eyes break the surface. Silent, motionless, blending perfectly into its surroundings. Dinosaurs came and went at the water's edge. Hadrosaurs, ankylosaurs, and even young tyrannosaurs, unaware of the danger concealed in the muddy depths. They had no reason to fear the water. They were the rulers of the land. But beneath the surface, a shadow waited. Deinosuchus was an ambush hunter, and its attacks were sudden, explosive, and nearly impossible to escape. When a dinosaur lowered its head to drink, or when a juvenile wandered too close, the giant crocodile would surge upward with incredible force. In a heartbeat, the calm water would erupt into a violent struggle. Massive jaws would clamp around a limb, the neck, or sometimes the entire head of the victim, and with a crushing bite, the battle was often over instantly. Once its target was secured, Deinosuchus used its massive weight to drag struggling prey into deeper water. Even large dinosaurs stood little chance. The crocodile's technique was simple but devastating: pull, drown, crush. Unlike modern crocodiles that often rely on the death roll, Deinosuchus may not have needed it. Its jaw strength alone could pulverize bone. But Deinosuchus was not only a killer of dinosaurs, it also fed on turtles, fish, and carrion. Fossils show bite marks on giant sea turtles from the same period, some with shells crushed by enormous force. The crocodile's ambush style allowed it to hunt creatures of many sizes, making it one of the most versatile predators of its environment. Its behavior outside hunting was surprisingly peaceful. Like modern crocodilians, Deinosuchus likely spent large portions of the day basking along riverbanks, warming its cold-blooded body under the sun. Massive, armored, and nearly impossible to attack, an adult had few predators. Even large theropods would have been cautious around a creature capable of crushing bones with a single bite. Territoriality played an important role in its behavior. Large males likely controlled stretches of river or swamp, especially those abundant in prey. Rival males may have engaged in powerful confrontations, using their massive jaws and armored bodies to clash in brief, violent encounters. However, evidence from modern crocodilians suggests that these disputes were usually display-driven rather than fatal. A show of size, a powerful roar, or a brief bite could settle dominance. Females played a crucial role in shaping the next generation. Deinosuchus nests would have been similar to those of modern crocodiles: mounds of vegetation and mud built near the water's edge. The eggs were likely guarded fiercely. A nesting female would have been one of the most dangerous animals in its environment. Striking at anything that came too close, young Deinosuchus would have been vulnerable, living in shallow side channels or protected areas to avoid larger predators, including their own kind. Only a few would survive into adulthood. Those that did would grow larger, stronger, and more skilled at ambush with each passing year. Swimming was the crocodile's true mastery. Propelled by its powerful tail, Deinosuchus moved with remarkable efficiency through the water. A slow glide allowed it to approach prey undetected. When necessary, it could explode forward at surprising speed. Using its entire body like a coiled spring, the soundscape of its world was a chorus of insects, the calls of marine reptiles, and the distant footsteps of dinosaurs moving through wetlands. A fully grown Deinosuchus contributed little sound of its own. It was a predator built on silence. The only noise it made was the sudden splash of an attack or the low, rumbling vocalizations used to communicate with others of its kind. Despite its massive size, Deinosuchus likely avoided unnecessary energy expenditure. It fed infrequently, sometimes going long periods without a meal, just as crocodiles do today. But when it did feed, it consumed enormous quantities. A single juvenile dinosaur could provide enough energy to sustain it for weeks. Its world was not ruled by speed or aggression. It was ruled by patience, by the power of surprise, by the unwavering advantage of a predator that never needed to chase, because eventually, everything came to the water. In this rhythm of silence and violence, Deinosuchus shaped its ecosystem, and for nearly 10 million years, nothing challenged its dominion. But even the mightiest rulers are not immune to change. The world that sustained Deinosuchus was shifting, and its reign, like all great empires, was destined to end. For millions of years, Deinosuchus was one of the most dominant predators in North America. It survived climate shifts, competition, and the rise and fall of numerous dinosaur species. Yet even a creature built with such power was not immune to the slow, sweeping changes that reshaped the late Cretaceous world. Its extinction was not sudden. There was no asteroid, no volcanic winter, no dramatic collapse. Instead, it disappeared the way many great species do, gradually, and through a series of environmental shifts that slowly eroded the foundation of its survival. The world Deinosuchus depended on began to transform. The western interior seaway, once a vast ocean that divided the continent, began to retreat. As sea levels fell, the coastal wetlands and estuaries where Deinosuchus thrived started to shrink. Rivers changed course. Marshes dried. Shallow bays filled with sediment. The waterways that had supported giant crocodiles began to disappear piece by piece. At the same time, sedimentation increased across many ancient river systems. Thick layers of mud and sand filled in channels, altering the flow of water and reducing the rich habitats that Deinosuchus relied upon. These changes were subtle at first, but over thousands of years, they transformed entire ecosystems. This shrinking habitat meant fewer ambush zones, fewer breeding sites, and fewer opportunities to hunt large prey. The giant crocodile found itself forced into smaller and more fragmented areas, competing with other crocodilians and aquatic predators for limited resources. Food availability became another critical challenge. As the wetlands changed, so did the populations of the dinosaurs Deinosuchus preyed upon. Hadrosaurs, which were among its favored targets, shifted their ranges. Some species declined, others adapted to new environments farther inland. The reliable food supply that Deinosuchus had enjoyed for millions of years became unpredictable. These pressures, shrinking habitats, declining prey availability, and increased competition created a slow, steady decline. A giant predator like Deinosuchus, which required vast territories and abundant resources, was particularly vulnerable to such long-term environmental changes. While the retreat of the western interior seaway played a major role, there were likely other contributing factors. Juvenile mortality may have increased as nesting sites became scarce. Climate fluctuations could have disrupted breeding cycles. The species may have become more genetically isolated as their territories fragmented, weakening populations further. By around 73 million years ago, Deinosuchus had disappeared entirely from the fossil record. It did not survive long enough to witness the asteroid that ended the age of dinosaurs. It vanished millions of years before that cataclysmic event, leaving behind only scattered bones and tooth marks on the fossils of creatures it once hunted. Its extinction was not a dramatic end of sudden violence. Instead, it was a slow fading, a giant gradually losing ground as the world around it changed. No single force destroyed Dinosaur. Rather, it was undone by the quiet persistence of geological time. Yet even in extinction, the creature left an unmistakable legacy. Its fossils tell the story of a predator capable of challenging dinosaurs. Its teeth, embedded in the bones of hadrosaurs, prove that no creature, matter how large or armored, was safe near the water's edge. Deinosuchus reminds us that dominance does not guarantee permanence. The mightiest rulers of any age can vanish when the world shifts beneath their feet. And although its body disappeared millions of years ago, its legend endures as one of the greatest freshwater predators to ever live. Now, one final question remains. If Deinosuchus lived today, how would our world change? Imagine stepping into a quiet swamp at dawn. Mist hangs low over the water. Dragonflies hover above still pools. Birds call from the trees. Everything is peaceful. But beneath the surface, hidden in the shadows, something ancient moves. A ripple spreads across the water. A massive shape rises. And then, with a slow, deliberate lift of its armored head, a living Deinosuchus emerges. If this creature survived into the modern world, everything about our relationship with wetlands, rivers, and coastlines would change overnight. No predator alive today, not even the largest saltwater crocodile, could match its size or power. This would not be a simple curiosity of nature. It would be a force that reshaped entire ecosystems. Wildlife biologists would rush to study it. Governments would scramble to protect it, and people everywhere would be stunned by its appearance. Reptile longer than a bus, rising from murky water like a moving piece of the ancient past. Its presence would instantly turn every riverbank into a place of awe and fear. The first question would be survival. Could such a giant adapt to the modern world? In remote swamps, large river deltas, or protected reserves, perhaps, but many habitats today are too fragmented, too polluted, or too small to support an 8-ton crocodile. A creature that requires huge stretches of water and abundant prey would struggle in heavily developed regions. Conflicts with humans would be inevitable. People living near rivers would face real danger. A predator capable of taking down dinosaurs would view livestock and possibly humans as potential prey. Managing its territory would require strict protections, large exclusion zones, and careful monitoring. Yet the ecological benefits could be enormous. As an apex predator, Deinosuchus would help control populations of invasive species, regulate fish communities, and maintain healthy wetland ecosystems. Like wolves reintroduced to Yellowstone, its presence could trigger cascades of renewal throughout its environment, but it would also challenge our assumptions about safety and wilderness. Hiking near water would become far riskier. Fishing boats might need reinforced hulls. Conservationists would debate how much space should be devoted to protecting a creature that could overturn a canoe with a single nudge. Scientists, however, would see endless opportunity. For the first time, we could observe how Deinosuchus hunted, how it communicated, how it protected its young. We could measure its bite force directly, study its metabolism, and understand how such a massive reptile managed to grow to such size. Every observation would rewrite textbooks and change our understanding of crocodilian evolution. Television crews would travel the world to capture footage of the giant surfacing, basking, or slipping silently beneath the water. Every documentary would feel like a glimpse into deep TMR, reminder that the age of reptiles never truly ended. Children would grow up hearing real stories of the crocodile that hunted dinosaurs, not as a creature of legend, but as a living giant. Museums would devote entire halls to studying its behavior. Tourists would gather at viewing platforms, hoping to see a dark shape glide through the water. And perhaps, standing before the living form of Deinosuchus, humanity would feel a rare sense of humility. For all our technology, all our progress, and all our control over the planet, here would be a creature older than civilization, older than humanity, older than the continents as we know them, a creature that survived millions of years, a creature that once reshaped entire ecosystems, a creature that reminds us how small we are compared to the long history of life on Earth. If Deinosuchus lived today, it would be both a marvel and a warning, a symbol of nature's ancient power and a reminder that the world we inhabit was built by giants. Long before we arrived, the crocodile that ate dinosaurs may be gone, but its shadow still lingers in every quiet swamp, in every deep river, and in every story of monsters that wait beneath the water.